Hi, everyone, and welcome to Acting Sessions. I'm Marco DiGeorge. I'll be your host today. I'm the co-founder and instructor at Truthful Acting Studios. We're an acting conservatory located in Orlando, Florida, in the United States. And we get on these from time to time and just to talk about various acting subjects. And today, the topic I wanted to talk about was this concept of story and the importance of story as it pertains to being an actor. What does that really mean? Because, of course, as an actor, we know that we pick up scripts. We know that we're part of a film, a television show, a play, and these things are stories. But what is our role in these stories? And today I wanted to discuss that. Now, during today's discussion, we have a chat feature if you're logged on with us live. And please feel free to say hi in the chat and to also, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and I will do my best to get to them by the end of today's session. So, with story, there's first of all, I want to start off with a quote, and it's by the great producer director Cecil B. DeMille, who said the greatest art in the world is the art of storytelling. And the interesting thing there too is it's also the oldest art in the world. If we think back about storytelling, not necessarily in the realm of film or stage, but just as we tell stories to pass down information from generation to generation, we tell stories to give information. We tell stories in order to teach a lesson. We tell stories for education. We tell stories for all different reasons. I mean, going back all the way to when humans lived in caves, and we can trace back the hieroglyphics on the walls. That was a form of storytelling. And then, of course, as you would sit around a campfire and teach a lesson, you would tell it in the form of a story. And so all of these different things have passed down over the centuries until we, of course, came into acting, the realm of theater, which was, again, a way of storytelling to both teach a lesson, to entertain, or pass information, but we would do that. And then leading into modern day film, television, theater, online, all of these different formats, we're telling stories. So it's one of our oldest formats. And if you think even your daily conversation, you might tell a story about something that happened yesterday, or you go to a family reunion and you talk about the stories of your life that have occurred since the last time you saw everyone. So storytelling is something that is very active in our daily lives, but also critical to what we do as an actor. Because now as an actor, when you're in a film, television show, or play, we are essentially telling a story to an audience. And so we need to relate those two together. So what is the importance of that then? Well, the importance of understanding story and story structure is helping us as an actor convey the proper message to an audience. A story, let's talk about it in the realm of a film. A film is going to be about something. It's about a character, it's about an event, it's about a theme, but there's different things that the director, producers, they're trying to convey to an audience. In a play, it's the same thing. If I'm doing a play, the play is about something. If you're acting in Shakespeare's Hamlet, well, Hamlet is about being betrayed, right? Hamlet has this feeling of betrayal and trying to get revenge based in that betrayal. So we have to bring the audience along on that ride. The one shortcoming, mistake that I see actors make when it comes to acting in different projects is that they don't take into account the story that's being told. Because as an actor, we have the tendency sometimes when we get the script to look only at our part, at the role that we will be playing. And then we try to make choices based in just what we want to see for that role or that character. But the issue with that is if we're not making choices as it relates to the overall story, then we're going to be pulling away the experience of the audience. We're going to be taking away from that. Our job as an actor is to make choices for the character to the best of our ability as it relates to the overall story, as it relates to what the audience needs to receive in every single moment that we are acting. So it's important to understand how overall story works. The role that your character fits in the story. For example, if your character is the lead, well, then the story is most likely about you and your character's journey through this whole thing. And so the choices you make will be about moment to moment that character's journey as you progress through the story. But if you're a supporting character means that your character supports the journey of the lead. Well, now you need to make choices not just based on what you want for your character, but how it relates and either helps or hinders the journey of the lead. And what is needed right now in this moment? What does the audience need to receive? And then further down than that, we have smaller parts. We have bit players, roles that you might be in like one scene or two scenes, but you're not one of the main characters. Like on a television show, sometimes we get what's called a guest starring role, which means we're in a single episode. We're in this episode, but we're not recurring. So then we have to play that part. What story are we trying to tell? Now, in performance, a director is the one that's really going to be focused on this. And it's the director's job or producer's job to really look at what is the arc, what is the story we're telling, and how do we go about doing that. So it's not, that doesn't fully fall on the actor to figure all of these things out, but it's our job to work with the director and with the producers to make sure that we are staying in our lane and doing what is expected of us. That's really important. An example of this is sometimes when I watch theater, and like in community theater or local theater, I'll be watching a play, and the play right now, there's a moment that the lead actors are having, and they're over here to this one side, and there's like two characters talking about something, and that's really where the focus should be. Yet there's another character on the other side of the stage. It's not their turn, it's not their focus for the scene, but they start doing something. They start picking something up or doing some movements or whatever it is. And the thought of the actor is, well, my characters should be living right now. My character's thirsty, so it's going to pick up a drink and take a drink. It's like, okay. The issue with that is that it pulls focus of the audience to this other side of the stage. And it pulls the focus away from where the audience's focus needs to be, which is on these two characters having this conversation. So we miss, as the audience, we miss pieces of that conversation. We miss what's going on in that moment. And then, as a result, it lessens the effect of the overall story to the audience. So much of story is focus. What are we focusing on right here and right now? What is the focus of this moment? What is the focus of this scene? What vital information does the audience need to receive in this scene? And then we make choices that go along in that direction. So story is something that, and there's a whole structure to it. And of course, we don't have time to get into the entirety of story structure. But just understand that there is a structure to stories, and you can start to see the structures when you watch movies or you read plays or you watch plays. You'll start to notice certain structures. And it's important that we begin looking at those patterns and even reading some books on those subjects. Uh, the hero's journey, which is one of our most common structures in American film, is something called the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a very common structure. Pretty much any superhero movie is the hero's journey. It's when a character from the very beginning is living some sort of normal life, typically that they're frustrated with, and they get plucked out of obscurity. Something happens to them that then puts them on an adventure that eventually leads them into having to do something very heroic. And this could be anything from Spider-Man to Harry Potter to Lord of the Rings. It's all of these different types of stories. So, Lord of the Rings is a very good example of Frodo Baggins living in the Shire. Everything's great. Until Gandalf shows up one day and says you have to take the ring and get it out of here. And so then it's taking this very normal character, right? This very, right, Frodo, who just lives in the Shire, who now has to do something extraordinary. There's a structure to that. We first introduce to the audience the character in their normal environment. So if I'm in that scene, I have to know, okay, this is that scene where I'm just a normal person, right? Or a normal hobbit in that case. I'm just this normal thing that then afterwards am going to be thrown out of my element. This comes into play in how we characterize things. This comes into play in choices of how we see the world, in perception. All of these different things come into that. Understanding that Frodo, to that point, has never left the Shire. So simply leaving the Shire is a big deal. And we see this over and over. We see it in Star Wars. We see it in, as I said, Harry Potter, who's plucked from obscurity to become the one wizard. We see it in pretty much everything, every superhero movie, from Batman to Superman to Wonder Woman to all of that. And so but we can see that structure. And then as you go on this ride, there's ups and downs in every moment. Now, again, a director is going to help you understand this of whatever story that you're portraying. But we need to know, what am I doing right now in this role? In this moment of the story, what must I do as my character to tell it in the best way? One other thing to understand about, so the ups and downs. So when we go on a ride, and this is really any film or any television show, there's going to be ups and downs. And I like to think about story structure as a roller coaster. If you think about a roller coaster, if you go to a park, and if you like the excitement of a roller coaster, you want ones that have greater ups and greater downs, versus something that's just very stagnant. Right? If something just goes flat, it's not very exciting. But the ones that have a really steep rise and a really steep fall, those can be more exciting. Well, the same thing to an audience. We have to build the ups and the downs. We call those levels for the audience. And the basic thing that you really need to know about levels is, before a down moment, we need to have an up moment. Before an up moment, we need to have a down moment. And the more we can pull those levels apart from each other, the more complete of an experience the audience will have. So think about a really easy example for this is in a horror movie. Typically at a horror movie, before somebody gets killed in a horror movie, there's usually, let's say you're running away from the killer, right? You're running away. The characters are, and there's a lot of adrenaline, and there's a lot of anticipation, and there's a lot of anxiety based in this running, and the music supports that, and the camera selection supports that, and then all of a sudden they escape, and then there's this moment of calm, right? You get inside this house, and then you escape. There's calm. The music behind everything calms down, right? There's a sense of relief. We escaped. and then all of a sudden there's a big machete that comes through the door and kills somebody. And so, or whatever it is, right? The monster reaches through the window and grabs somebody. What happens is we have this really crazy adrenaline, like we kind of bring everything up, 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 up. And then when they get in and they're safe, we bring it down, we settle it. And then right as we settle it, there's almost this silence. Then bam, we jump it back up again. Those are the ups and downs. And every horror movie, you can predict it based on the sounds that you hear, based on what's actually happening, based on the camera shots and movements. And it's so predictable that you can study horror movie after horror movie. It's all the same thing. But to an audience, it works. Every time we watch one, it works. Leveling, it builds an expectation inside of us instinctually. It's based in human nature. What we do is we set an expectation with something and then we subvert it the other way. We go the other direction. And setting an expectation and then immediately going in a different direction can be very shocking and jarring to us. So we look at this thing and it's called mapping. Right? We map these levels up and down and up and down. Well, this is something we do as actors. As actors, we have to look at a script and figure out what are the up moments and what are the down moments. We typically do this in correlation with a director. The director can help us, plot out these events throughout a script. But you can look at it too and say, okay, so in this scene, it never goes horizontally. A scene will never run flat, because that's very boring to an audience. So we're always either moving up or moving down. And think of it this way. As a character, you're either moving toward your goal, meaning you're getting what you want, or you're moving away from your goal, you're not getting what you want, or obstacles are put in your way. So that's kind of the curvature we always go on. We're either moving toward something or we're moving away from ultimately what our character is fighting for and what our character needs. And the more we can pull those levels, the better for the audience. As human beings, we experience things in contrast. We understand one thing based in how much we understand the other. We understand up because we understand down. We understand hot because we understand cold. To the extent that we can understand good is the extent that we can understand bad or evil. So everything in our life is contrasted. So when we tell a story to an audience, based in just that concept alone, the audience will understand one thing based in how they understand the opposite. So if we want the audience to really understand hope and inspiration, or a very positive, victorious moment in a film, we have to also give them in that same film a feeling of despair or devastation, or all hope is lost. And to the extent that we can accomplish both is where the audience will have the ability to go on that ride. If you watch movies that are more flat, meaning that it might have a small wave to it, but they don't really pull the levels, you'll find that it might be, it was like, oh, that was an okay story. That was entertaining. That's usually what we say. Oh, it was entertaining. But it wasn't impactful. Versus the movies that really hit you, the ones that stay with you, the ones that have impacted your life, and even to a point where it's like, man, I really want to do this for a living because of that movie. Those are the movies that if you really look at the leveling, they did something in the leveling to allow you to feel certain moments. So as an actor, we need to see those things too and understand, okay, if we're going to have, and this is in, again, you go back to the hero's journey, towards the end of the hero's journey, which is the end of Act 2 going into Act 3 of the hero's journey. Act 3 of a hero's journey is called the resolution, right? It's when everything is kind of summed up and at the end. But coming out of that, at the end of Act 2, there's something called, so if you have a victory in the hero's journey, where the hero defeats the villain, well, that victory needs to be very far up. So that's where we're going to be heading to. We're going to go to this really up point. So it's like, okay, so before that, we need to hit the lowest of the low. And in writing terms, It's called the all is lost moment. That's what it is. In story structure, in writers learn this. You say, okay, well, right before that, end of Act 2, everything needs to be lost. Like literally, the hero loses everything, and there's no way they can possibly get out of this. And then miraculously, they do, which makes the victory that much more profound to the audience. If you think of the original Star Wars with Luke blowing up the Death Star, well, right before that, Darth Vader destroyed both of his wingmen, and Luke's the only one left. Darth Vader hit R2. He lost R2, so he no longer has his targeting. And as he's going down, Darth Vader has him in his sights. Right? I mean, it's like everything is gone. And then Luke is going to use the Force, so he turns off everything, and he's going to. It's like how is this possible? How can this possibly happen? And then out of nowhere, Han Solo comes in and saves the day. Luke takes the shot. It's 1 in a million, and bam, and they win. So you go to this place where it's like it's all going to fail, and then miraculously we win. And we see that whether it's in the Karate Kid, whether we see it with the whole journey of Lord of the Rings, whether we see it with Harry Potter facing off with Lord Voldemort. It's all of the same, right? It's we base it. I mean, you look at something like Harry Potter. I mean, if you look at what really happens, all was lost, and then miraculously we come back. The Matrix, all was lost, literally, for Neo's journey in the first Matrix. And then miraculously, we come back. So that's all about leveling. That's all about bringing the audience on a journey to make sure that they feel the ups, they feel the downs. In every moment, we feel the ups, we feel the downs. And in those cases, we go down as far as we can. So when we come back up, the audience has this rush of excitement, this rush of victory that runs through them. And that's what we're looking for. So as the actor, we have to learn how to identify these moments. And it's good as we're making choices, when we're making choices based on how emotional the character is in any moment, how hard they're fighting for something in any moment. You know, because if we have a character, let's say that's angry, like let's say that there's an argument scene. If a character's angry through the whole scene, it's this one level. And one level is something we call flatlining. And of course, if we think about in medical terms, right, you have a heartbeat that goes up and down, up and down, up and down. If we flatline, we die. And same thing with your character. We need to go up and down, up and down, up and down. If you flatline, you essentially die, meaning the performance dies to the audience. They're no longer engaged and interested in what is happening and what you have to say. So one of the things I highly recommend for actors is to, and this is like essential, read. Read as much as you possibly can. But don't just silently read. Pick up something and read out loud. When you read out loud, it engages you in a different way. And first of all, reading is one of the essential skills that we have to do as an actor. Reading, we read out loud at auditions. We're typically handed a scene that we have to read off the page. We read out loud when it comes to table reads and script reads and all sorts of different things. And we're expected to be able to put something into it immediately. So we're constantly, as actors, reading off the page. So we need to be very proficient at that anyway. Well, the best way to get proficient at reading is to read. So read as much as you can. But if you read, what I would encourage you to read are plays. Read published plays. And you can go to your local library. You can even look online. You could order plays through either Amazon or there's a Dramatist's play service. You can look at that. There's places that you can go but read plays as much as you can. When you read plays are written for the actor. And so it's film is what we call a visual medium. It's about everything we're showing in the picture. Acting is part of it. The characters are part of it, but we also show different things. We use score, music to underscore everything, so that helps the journey, right? But it's very visual in what we're showing, and many times we're showing these very like wide sweeping shots. We show different elements of it. There's graphics. There's all sorts of things that help us in film. It's not only about the actors. So film scripts are written visually, meaning that when someone writes a film script, they're thinking about what are the visuals of this as we go through, and it's not always just about the actor. However, plays are written only for the actors, because when you perform a play, it's you on stage and that's it, right? It's you and some other actors on stage, and the whole play kind of, it either works or it doesn't based in the performances. So when you're reading plays, they're written for performance. And the good thing there is when you read more plays, it will help you see the structure a little more. It will help you see what I'm talking about with the leveling easier than film scripts will. Simply because in film scripts, other things go into play, other elements that are outside of just the acting. But in plays, those levels are written into the performance itself. So I would encourage you to read as much as you can, as it, as it pertains to that. And again, read out loud. Always read like you're performing. Always read as you're reading to somebody else, even if you're by yourself. But read as much as you can. That will fall into another element of story. So clarity of story is also important. So we have three elements of performance. The first element is called truthful. So the ability to deliver a performance truthfully for an audience. And what that means when we deliver something truthfully is we have all of the internal life covered, and the audience can feel what the characters are feeling. So there's an emotional journey for the audience as well. Because there's always two stories being told. There's the ones that we see and hear. We call it the visual story. But then underneath that, there's the emotional story, which is the one the audience can feel. And that's the deeper story. So we always want our performance to be truthful. Secondly, we want our performance to be believable. Believability is the audience's ability to suspend their disbelief and go along on the journey. So we want them to do that. And there's a lot of things that go into believability, especially in film. There's many technical elements that do that. But basically, when you're watching a film or a TV show, if you're connected in with it and you're going along with the characters, then it's believable. But if something happens, anything happens, like a continuity error, it could be as simple as that. Or it could be just the way an actor reacts to something. It's like, wow, it wasn't believable. It pulls you out. And it puts you in your head as an audience member for a moment and saying, wow, that wasn't right. That was weird. And so as an actor, we need to make sure we always maintain believability. And then the third, which is what reading will help with, is something called digestibility. Digestibility is the audience's ability to understand the story moment by moment and to be able to digest it piece by piece. And we do that by not giving the audience too much at once, by not trying to overcomplicate it. And one of the biggest things is speaking clearly, speaking with intention. So voice comes into that. The ability to take text and to speak it in a way where someone else can understand what you're saying. So now it's a whole different level. Now we're not simply just memorizing lines and then saying them back. Now we have to speak them with a level of intention that we're clearly communicating, not just with the other person in the scene, but we need to be able to clearly communicate this to the audience as well. Vocal clarity comes into play. Enunciation comes into play. Diction comes into play. All of these things. So reading out loud helps you with that. Reading out loud will help you slow down. It will help you use your words. You can work on enunciating every word so the audience can clearly hear you and clearly understand you. So I encourage you all uh, to work on that. It's one of the questions I get the most often. It's like, as an actor, what can I be working on when I'm not in a class or when I'm not working on a project? What can I be working on? And as simple as it sounds, read plays and read them out loud. That's the best thing you can be working on, and it really will help you in your career. All right, so I had some questions I wanted to pull up here and see if I can answer. And if you have any other questions, you can put them in the chat, and I will see if I can get to those as well. So the first question I had was, how can we improve body language when delivering dialogue? Okay, so physicality is one of what we call the pillars of acting, right? There's 6 essential pillars of acting, and physicality is one of them, meaning as an actor, we have to work on our body. And we work on our body, that doesn't mean we have to be in any sort of shape or anything else. It means we have to learn that our physical being is free to use however we need to for the character. How we move in life is not the only way we can move. It's simply how we have learned how to move in life. It's kind of like a character we are playing in the real world. But as an actor stepping into another life, this thing called character, this character may move differently than we do. They may be more uptight than we are, so they're coming in and their shoulders are in and they're more tense in their chest than we are, or maybe they're more relaxed, so they're more open than we are. Maybe they sit up straight more, right? So they're more proper, or maybe they're loose and they're down. So there's different physicalities that we can play. So that's the first thing, is identifying who is this character that you're stepping into, where are they from, what type of person are they, and how does your body help tell that story? Because your body language will help tell the story. The other thing goes into, when it comes down to body language, is knowing what are you fighting for in any moment. So in every moment of a scene or a story, your character is trying to accomplish something, meaning that you're trying to get something from those around you. You're trying to maybe change someone's mind, get them on your side, but you're doing something in every moment. Well, if you really do that, if you really fight for what you're trying to fight for, your body will naturally fall into that. You will have the body language of that fight. This is different than trying to show, like when you show that you're angry, we do things that we don't normally do in life. Where if we're really trying to fight to get someone on our side, our gestures, our body language will mimic and mirror what is happening inside of us. So it will naturally happen. And the nice thing about that is we don't have to think about that too much. We simply need to put our focus outward. We put our focus on what we need from our partner. And then we really, really do this. We really, really try to accomplish that. And then you can leave yourself alone, which is wonderful. All right, so I have a couple questions already in the chat. Let me see. Let me get to one. So, how to get rid of our nervousness when playing a character, especially in front of camera, director, or many people. Yes, getting rid of your nervousness. This is something that every actor deals with. We become anxious when we are in front of others. Acting is a higher form of public speaking, meaning public speaking, you stand up in front of others and you're talking about a subject. In acting, we're standing up in front of others and revealing the most vulnerable pieces of ourselves. So because of that, yes, we're going to be nervous. We're going to be anxious. How I would answer this is that it's not that you have to get rid of being nervous, because your anxiety, your nervousness actually will help you in the role, because your characters are nervous too. So this is actually not a negative thing to have. It's actually a very positive thing. However, we need to learn how to take all this nervousness that's kind of pulling us back, turning it around and using it. And so the way we get through anxiety is something called outward focus. We need to learn to put our focus outward. So like right now, in any moment, right? You're in a scene and you're really nervous, and sure, there's cameras and there's people watching you, but who are you talking to? Like, find your scene partner, whoever you're talking to. Look at them. No one else, just look at them. And what do you need in this? You need to get them on your side, then really do it. So it's a matter of focus, putting all of your focus on in this one direction, on this one person, and then really doing what you need to do. Outward focus breaks through the anxiety. It doesn't make it go away. It allows us to function through it. The anxiety, here's the thing about anxiety, which is your nervousness. When you're nervous about something, it means you care. You're going to be nervous about things that are important to you. So this is a good thing. It's a nice thing to be nervous because it shows how much you care about this. Now, we're also nervous because we want to do a good job at something, right? We tend to tell her we really want to do this well. Okay, well, right now in this moment, don't worry about that. Put your focus back outward. Really do what you have to do. And then that, again, breaks through that. So when I train actors, that's one of the main things that we work on, is we work on this concept called outward focus. And we apply tools, getting our focus away from ourself and over there. Because if we're focused on the self, if we're focused on what we're saying and what we're doing, we're in our head, right? We're basically we're up here, and we're not present in the world around us. And our acting has to do with being present. So you can work on this every day of your life by simply taking moments out of your day and creating outward focus. Whatever you're doing, really do it. If you're really washing the dishes, really wash the dishes in the sink. Feel the water, right? Make it a full sensory experience. Don't allow your mind to think about other things. Be all in right here. And the more you can do that, the more you can go all in with your focus, the easier it is to work through your nervousness. So thank you for that question. All right, let's see. Tyler's asking, what can we do to prepare for the story of a character for an audition in theater or film? So this is a great question, because in theater or film, like in an audition, we only get a sliver of the story. So we don't have the overall story most of the time. If you go to a film audition, typically they're going to have something called a cold read. A cold read is where they hand you a very short scene, and that might be out of the film or not, but they hand you a very short scene with no other context, and you have to make decisions based on that. So what I would say there is, don't worry about the overall story. The only thing you can work on is what you're given. So take that scene and find the fight in that scene. What does this character desperately need? Try to make everything you can as vitally important to you as possible. The more important it is to you, the better it's going to be for the audience. So no matter, and here's the thing about auditions. Sometimes we pick up an audition and the script, the scene, we can look at it and say, wow, this is boring. It's just two people sitting around talking. Make sure you don't jump to that conclusion. Make sure it's never just two people sitting around talking, no matter what's saying, even if it's, oh, good morning, what do you want for breakfast, whatever. Even if it's like this kind of very bland, neutral dialogue, there's something always important happening underneath it. And that's what you have to look at, is how can we make this moment as important as possible? And sometimes it's not in the text itself, but it's in where you're coming from. So you can make a choice as a character, where are we coming from? Or what do we need? Or, even more important, what are we not saying? What's the secret that we're not revealing? Maybe we want to say something. Maybe you want in this moment to profess your love to somebody, but you just can't find the strength to do that. And that's what's happening inside of your character. And all of a sudden, these very simple lines of dialogue take on a whole new meaning. Maybe you can make a choice. And again, this is based on what's given to you, and then based on what you can, you start from what's given to you, and then you can create some different choices. It could be as simple as, you just found out that you have a terminal illness, and you need to tell this other person, but you don't know how. And again, it's what are you not saying? So those are some good, what we call choices. This quote unquote choice thing that we hear all the time. And when you make those choices about having something emotionally deep inside of you, it will raise the experience of that audition. So that's the best way to prepare for story, is you start with what you're giving. Typically, it's not much. Don't worry, you don't have to ask any questions when you go to an audition about filling in more of the story. You do that. And don't worry so much on the surface. Don't worry about plotline story. Worry about emotional story. What do you need in this moment from the other person? And how are you feeling about it coming into the scene? That's really it, and that's the best thing you can do. I'm gonna do a separate session on some auditioning things as well, so I'll go into more detail when I get to there. All right, so next question, Angela, you're asking, my background is in theater, which obviously is much louder and more exaggerated than film. I find that I often act very dramatically and maybe too expressively. How should I go about practicing acting more refined that would be more suitable for something like film? Here's a secret for you, Angela, is that the best way to learn film acting is through theater. In fact, the best film actors are theater actors. If you look at where Hollywood casts from, much of their casting comes from London theater or Australian theater. That's where they're casting from. All of these Shakespearean actors that are coming over and now doing American film. And so theater is an amazing backdrop for film. It's an amazing training ground for film. It's a misconception that theater is too loud or too expressive. It's actually the opposite. Typically, film actors are not loud enough or not expressive enough. So theater can teach us that. Now, the optics of theater are different, and I understand that, right? We're still after the same thing. Whether you're on stage or whether we're in front of the camera, we're after truth. However, our truth on stage sometimes needs to be bigger, because if you're in a very large theater, you're very small to an audience member sitting back. So our physical expression needs to be bigger, and our voice tends to be, needs to make sure that everyone in the room can hear. So sure, there are some things we adjust, but the goal in theater is to never lose truth. It still needs to be truthful, believable, digestible, the same way we do in film. So when you get to film, there are moments, and think of it this way, right? So if you're talking to somebody that's 100 feet away from you, you're going to sound and look different, right? If they're like very far across from you, you could try this one time. Like put somebody and have them like go really, really far away from you and have a conversation, and notice how your voice raises and your physicality changes, and then have them slowly get closer and continue the conversation. What happens to you? Well, your physicality isn't as big. Your voice doesn't have to be as loud. Then have them right next to you. What happens? Well, now our physicality can come more in. We still have it, but it's more subtle. And then all of a sudden our voice is more focused. So that's really the difference. In film, the camera comes in. It's when the camera moves in on a character, it's as if the audience is moving in closer. So what we do is we take any external expression and we move it internal. We still have that expression. We still have those feelings. We still have that need to express, except it's inside of us. So there's a saying, instead of going bigger, we go deeper with it. We allow it to come out with our emotional life. We allow ourselves to have more thoughts in the direction of what we're trying to say. And that will work. Don't worry at all about theater being too big. It's what's needed in film. We just need to allow ourselves to change the optics. And it's the actual physical distance that you have from one person to the next, and that's it. So really allow yourself to naturally and truthfully say the things that you have to say, or to do the things you have to do, and everything else will take care of itself. And keep working in theater. It's the best training ground that there is. All right, so next question. As someone who stutters a lot, speaking loudly and with my vocal clarity is my weakness, do you think that reading loudly can help get rid of it? So, reading out loud can help. The biggest thing that is going to help you with stuttering is enunciation and slowing it down. So, growing up, I had a stutter myself. And what was happening is I was trying to speak too fast. I was getting ahead of my body's ability to interpret what I was trying to say. And when I would speak too fast, I would get right. I would all of a sudden get stuck on something. And then, of course, the more you try to force that out, the worse it gets. So it's about taking a deep breath and try speaking slowly. In fact, try speaking more slowly than you actually would or you think is appropriate, especially in reading exercises. Break down every syllable. Speak every syllable, right? Every little piece of it. Don't rush through it. Stuttering will come from trying to rush or excitement, those type of things. Slow it down absolutely as much as you can. And, it's going to take time and effort and repetition of it to do that. But reading out loud can absolutely help you with that. Now, I would suggest if it's something that bothers you, the stutter, then do it in your own privacy. So you don't have to worry about anyone else around you hearing the stutter if that's something you worry about. So in that way, you can work on this, but slow it way down. Really work on that, and that can help you. That can help your brain interpret the signals of what you need to say, and then give you the time then to construct it and to say it. But I completely understand that struggle, and just know you're not alone with that, and just keep working on it. And I've managed to work through it, and I know you can too. Let's see, Tyler. You had it too, Tyler, huh? Awesome. So you're not alone. I went through it. Tyler went through it. So it's something that you can definitely work through. Thank you for putting that up there, Tyler, as well. Okay, so the next question, I get online auditions a lot. Yes, something that's happening more and more. Do you have some recommendations to help me with recording online auditions? So if you're recording them, they're not live, is what I'm assuming you're saying, but rather you're getting the audition, you have to record it, and then you have to send it off to the casting. So first of all, let's just talk just a moment about how that works. So with self tapes, with when you're recording yourself for an audition, first of all, it's no different than going to a casting director. And what I mean by that, a casting director does not cast the film. That's a misconception. I know they're called casting directors, but they don't make all the final decisions. Now, casting directors may make decisions for smaller parts in the film, day players or backgrounds. Like casting directors can do that. But for the most part, casting directors, their job is to conduct and facilitate the auditions that then they give those recordings to the producers and directors, who are the ones that then ultimately make the decisions. So the reason that's important to understand is if you go into an audition with a casting director, they're not making the decision. They're simply recording you, and then they're going to send that recording on to the people that make the decision. Well, if you record yourself, you're serving now as the casting director. You're just putting yourself on tape, and then you're sending that in to the director or producer. So it's really no different, and it's important to understand that there's really no difference in the process of doing that. If you go to an audition, you just have a casting director that's doing it for you. If you do it yourself, you're just bypassing that. So what I would say there is one is the same thing that they're doing, you need to do. There's a couple things. So when you're recording, just some real basics right now. Make sure you're lit well, like right now, right? I can be seen. So you just have some light that is shining on you. So make sure you look okay and there's enough light where you are. Make sure you sound okay. Now, most phones nowadays are fine. The cameras are good enough quality and the sound is okay enough. But speak up. Make sure you're speaking up. Make sure you're enunciating. Make sure that you can be heard very clearly. That's the biggest thing, is you need to be seen really well and you need to be heard really well. So that's number one. Also, if you're using a phone, this is for filming auditions. Not this. This is for TikTok. This is for auditions. So make sure it's landscape. That's critical. Many casting directors or producers won't even look at your video if it's not in that proper format. So do that. So that's the technical end of it. And the next, it's the same thing. It's no different when you receive the material. It's no different than you're going into the audition. It's the same exact thing. Look at the material. Make some strong choices. The choices you're going to make are going to be based in relationship. Make the strongest relationship choices that you can. And have something to fight for. Have something that you need from the other person in the scene. And then really try to get that from the other person. And what I mean really try to get it, as an actor, we read the whole scene, we know where it goes. Don't allow that knowledge to stop you from fighting. Like, let's say you know the scene goes to a point where you don't get what you want. That doesn't mean you shouldn't fight for it, because at the beginning of the scene, you do not know that. You in this life, the character does not know they don't get what they're fighting for. So fight as hard as you can for it. Again, those are the levels. If you fight as hard as you can for something and then don't get it, that's a really nice leveling in that scene. It's more of a dejection or a rejection that you'll allow the audience to experience. So just make those choices like that. And again, I'm going to have a separate session on auditioning, and I'll cover all of this in a little more detail. How do you find self-tape auditions? And the next question goes right with that. And is Backstage a good website in finding an audition? So self-tape auditions, so there's two levels of auditioning. One is going to be called professional auditions. Professional auditions is big television, big film, commercials. Things that are paid, more highly paid anyway, things that are covered by the union. Those are all going to be done through an agent. You'll need an agent to be sent out or to receive those auditions. It's a filtering mechanism of the industry. Just so, because, otherwise every audition, they'd have millions of people sending in stuff for it. So instead, they go through agents, because in order to obtain an agent, you have to have some experience, you have to have some training in order to have an agent. And then once you have a talent agency, they are the ones that then send you, here's an audition that you need to record yourself for, or here's an audition you need to go to. So that's how to get more of those professional auditions. Until that point, you can do non-professional auditions. Those will most likely be either, if they're paid, they're smaller amounts, or many of them are unpaid. But it's still good to get the opportunity for experience. So in those, you can find those online. Now, Backstage is a place you can find auditions, and there is, valuable things on Backstage. However, Backstage is also flooded with non-valuable things. So you just have to be careful. You have to sort through it. If something ever sounds too good to be true, it is. Nothing is given away in this industry. Everything requires hard work. So they're not all of a sudden going to give you a major, role in a major Marvel movie or something. That doesn't work like that. So things that sound too good to be true are. But can you find actual smaller projects, independent film, theater? Yes, absolutely you can on Backstage. So just be careful. Just as anything else, trust your gut, trust your instincts with that. And then also there's still other social media platforms. Facebook is still a viable platform as it is right now, is this time of that we're recording this, in the sense of there are still like Facebook groups. Now, I know not everyone uses Facebook anymore, but there are Facebook groups in different cities all over that can allow you to get in for castings, auditions, and so forth. So I would look on there, maybe some other social media platforms. But that's really how to go about that. Now, for theater, what I would do is in your local city, wherever you're at, or whatever city is near you, just look around, search online for community theater near me, and see what the community theaters are. And each one of their websites, they should have what their casting process is for theater. If you're near a big university, look to see if they have a film program, because universities have. So I teach at the local university here, and I teach in the film department, and so our students are required to do films through their time there, and so those films are a great place for actors to work. So those are some places that you can look to find auditions. And then let's see, Angela, you were saying this isn't a question, but I have a teacher who I work with who says that when it comes to figuring out how to portray a character, there are 4 questions you need to ask yourself. What do I want? How am I going to get it? How would it make me feel? How would it affect my life if I got what I wanted? Why do I want it so badly? So yeah, those are good questions to ask, especially for even auditions and so forth. Those are really, really good questions to ask. And then as you develop, as you learn a process more deeply. So what I teach something that is based in the Sanford Meisner approach. And it's an entire process. So it's a blend of Meisner, and I incorporate, as far as script analysis, a lot of what they teach in London, which is called classical training. And both of those come together to really learn how to analyze a script, how to look in it and find out what the deeper story is, what the deeper story is for your character, and then dive in deeply into why every moment is so meaningful, meaning why the relationships are meaningful, what are the things that you vitally need, through the journey of the script, and what's at stake. And so those are things that you can do as well. So thank you for sharing that, Angela. Those are good questions. And yeah, thank you everyone for putting the questions in the chat. I love answering them. I love being able to, I love this. I love being able to answer as much as I can for you. And it's amazing how time just goes by. Here, I can do one more. So I'll do this last one. When trying to find an agent, where do you suggest to start? So agents are going to be local to you, and they're going to exist typically in the major city that you're near. You're either going to be in a major city or by one, hopefully. And so the closest major cities should have talent agents in them. And those, even if you're within 100 miles of one, that's still close enough. And so what I would do is, again, search talent agents near me, or talent agents in whatever the city name is, and start going through the websites for those talent agencies. And they will have submission, like how to submit to them, what they're looking for, so forth. You'll also see what they represent. There are agencies that represent film, television, commercials, which is a really big one, and then separately theater. So you'll have agents that represent all of that. There's also agents that represent modeling, live performance, meaning like theme park and some other things. So you'll see what they have to offer. Um, and then what I would do is also ask around. When you find an agent and you're wondering, is this a good agent or not? Ask around. And then follow their submission requirements. Some might ask you to mail in something. Uh, some might ask you to email or fill out a form, but just follow the steps. Typically, for a talent agent, you're going to be required to have a headshot and a resume, and those are things that you'll typically have to have ahead of time. And again, I'll cover that in a future session of how to get a good headshot and a good resume. But man, we have reached our time. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you have any other questions in the meantime before our next session together, you can go ahead and you could email us right here at info@truthfulacting.com. You can, if you have any other questions, you can send us an email there, and we'll do our best to get back to you. Or you can call or text us at the number below, and you will get Samantha, who's been talking to you in the chat. And also, if you're interested in our program of what we have to teach at Truthful Acting, we teach in studio, but we also have online, meaning live online sessions as well, where you can connect in live via Zoom, and it's as if you're right there in the class, taking the class with us. So we have those options, and coming up soon, we will have prepackaged online courses as well that you can take at your own pace. So there's many different ways to train. But if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Let us know, and then I look forward to seeing you at the next session. All right. Thanks, everyone.